Hello and welcome to Your Employment Matters. I'm Beverly Williams and I'm here to help you navigate your career. This is for anyone who's searching for their dream job or promotion, or perhaps you're just looking to hang on to the job you have. Today's work environments are multi-generational, multi-religious, multinational, multiracial, and multi-gender identity. Add market disruptors like Amazon and Lyft, along with the addition of AI, and it's easy to see why finding and keeping a job is such a challenge. Employment success and even employment survival depend on your ability to adapt. That's why my goal for this 30-minute podcast is to first advocate embracing change and differences, and second, to encourage you to proactively assume responsibility for your career. Get your work week off to a good start by listening to Your Employment Matters every Monday. Find out how to own your career and get the best practices for making your employment matter. Hello. Today, I have a very special guest. A very special guest because I've never met him. I didn't speak to him until today. And in this post-COVID world that we all live in, but especially in mine, I find that my podcast guests are people that I may not have ever seen, ever spoken to, but upon the recommendation of people I either hold in high regard, respect, or trust, I engage them. And today, my guest, Mr. Richard Hooker Jr., is one of those individuals. I have not met him, had not met him face to face, even virtually until about 10 minutes ago. And the person who recommended that I reach out to him, I haven't met him either. I will see him, hopefully, because he too has agreed to be interviewed. This is a lesson for everyone. You have to reach out. You have to tell people what you're doing because you can always get help. If you don't talk about what you're doing, if you don't let people inside your world, you may not get the help that you need, that you've been trying to get. It might be right before you and you don't know anything about it. You just, because you didn't share. So I happen to be judging a mock court competition, and a judge, an appellate division judge, was my partner. And I happened to tell him during a break. And that's how I connected with Mr. Hooper through someone that the judge knew. So here we are. So thank you, Mr. Hooper. Just so you know, I'm going to call him Richard. He's going to call me Beverly because we've agreed to that. And we can do that. Isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So, Richard, tell us a bit about yourself so we get to know who you are, where you are briefly, and then we'll get into what you do as not only a union member. Richard is not only a union member, he's a union leader, a union officer, and that carries additional responsibilities. So, Richard, I leave it to you. Thank you for coming.
So thank you for having me. This is a pleasure and a privilege. So I come from a little small town in North Carolina, Belhaven. That's where I was born. My father was in the military. He was in the military for over 20 years. Most of that time, he was stationed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So we ended up moving to Fayetteville, North Carolina. That's where I grew up. Went to high school there, went to college at North Carolina A&T in Greensboro, Aggie Pride. Then in 1998, I transferred to Drexel University here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which I still reside at today. Didn't know anything about unions because, again, North Carolina is a right-to-work state. Unions were not at the dinner table. My father was a pastor, preacher, and as well a sergeant in the military. So our conversations at the dinner table were about Jesus and the military. Very strict, but it gave me a sense of duty and purpose, if you will. And so coming up north, different type of atmosphere, small town guy. The place where I was born only had 2 stoplights. Philadelphia got about a million and a half people.
And you got to move fast in Philadelphia because
Gotta move fast.
Gotta move fast. You get hit if you don't move fast enough to get across.
You're right about that. You're right about that. And so I started working at UPS, and everybody knows that UPS workers, the people that work in the warehouse and drive the package cars, they are represented by the Teamsters union. And so again, didn't know anything about what a union did, what a union does. Didn't really care because, again, this was not my background. Didn't even know anything about unions. So once I became a full-time employee, that was a sense of investment that I didn't have when I was a part-time employee. So I wanted to know more about, hey, man, if I'm paying these union dues, then what am I getting for it? You know, it comes with the benefits, it comes with the protections, better working conditions, those kinds of things, but I still didn't understand it. And so around 2007, 2008, I became a shop steward, protecting people, fighting for people. That's what we talked about at the dinner table. Again, my father being a soldier and also a preacher, is that connectivity about caring for people's souls as well as fighting for them home and abroad through the military. So 2008, 2007 became a shop steward, trying to get more involved in the union. Then my eyes opened up to what union really is and what it's supposed to do, right? Dealing with the employer, especially UPS, right? It's a very challenging job. So you have to know the contract, you have to know your members, and you have to know the employer. Because each employer may be different industries, but they all have the same kind of end goal, is to make profit at the least expense they can get it, right? And most of the times that comes at the expense of the workers. That didn't sit right with me because I'm under the impression that, hey man, if my labor is providing you this service to get you all these profit, then we should be treated better. We should have a better contract. You shouldn't be talking to me all crazy. Because what happens if all of us put our hands in our pockets? You don't get no profit. So that's kind of been my mindset. And so then, you know, growing up through the ranks of the union, I wanted more. I didn't think that we should be paying all this money and not getting more services. The contract is one thing. The healthcare is one thing. But what about having a voice in the shop floor? What about having a voice in the community? What about things that's going on in the city, right? Because I don't think a union member is a union member from 9 to 5. I think if you pay union dues, you're a union member 24/7. So that kind of was my driving force to run for office. The contracts didn't get better, and it seemed like the dues kept going up, but the contracts didn't keep improving. So we ran for office in 2016, and being an African American, trying to be an African American leader in a officers that's dominated by middle-aged white men, that was a challenge because for the first 100 years of our local, it's always been a middle-aged white man that led the local union. So here I am coming from North Carolina, you know, making all this noise, and we only lost by 37 votes. And that was kind of an eye-opener for me because race was an issue. So we knew we had a challenge there. So we just kept plugging away at it for the next 3 years, right? We changed up.
Let me ask you something. You were surprised that race was an issue?
No, I was surprised that we lost by that small of a margin because race was an issue. So
you
I'm
knew
thinking
that race was going to be an issue going in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
There's no doubt about it because it never happened before.
Has it changed? Do you feel differently about what's going on in your local now?
In the local, yes. In the international, not so much. But the local, yes, absolutely. You could definitely see the change because the majority of my local, they look like you and I. Like 70% of the workforce here are Black and brown people.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the leadership up until now, it didn't reflect that. So when we lost in 2016 by those small margins, we just stayed at it. Changed our bylaws to be more transparent, to have more rank and file power at the negotiating table. We organized around that. And so, because I wanted people to understand that this is just not about getting in office. This is about changing lives, improving lives, making it, having a better contract. So we ran again in 2019. We beat everybody. It wasn't even close. And since 2020, we've been in office. We got reelected again in 2023. So this is our second term. And went through the COVID, negotiated strong contracts, organized some more workers into our unit. We actually just organized a 209-member unit, school bus drivers here 2 weeks ago. And so we're rocking and rolling. We've changed our whole narrative, the trajectory of our local union. We've been grinding ever since 2020.
Have you experienced more interest in belonging to a union from the people that you work with?
Absolutely, because like you said, you talked about COVID. COVID really showed the American worker the power that they had. Because one of the most difficult times in our history, America had to depend on its workers. If you wanted to buy something, you did it online. Who delivered it to you? UPS, Amazon, FedEx. It was a worker. If you had to go to the store, you had to go in a few
No,
at a
you didn't
time.
go to the stores. You wanted it delivered to the house. You didn't want to go
Absolutely.
to the stores.
Right.
I mean,
But
the
somebody
fear.
somebody had to deliver it to you, and that was that worker. Those shelves still had to get stocked by the workers. Those packages, those vaccines had to be delivered by the worker. And I think what happened once COVID happened, it really gave the workers a sense of pride. Say, hey, man, we have power. We just went through one of the most difficult times in our history, and America had to depend on us to make it through. I never forget, I believe Donald Trump was in office. Don't want to call his name too much, but he was in office and he called on these CEOs for these companies to have a meeting about keeping America running. And those CEOs, they went back to their companies and said, hey, working man, working woman, working family, we need you. And we showed up every single day.
The commitment from the first responders and the service providers like
Yep.
yourself, that was a frightening time. I'm not a fearful person, but I was like, okay, nobody's coming in here. I had spray. If anybody that had to come in had to be sprayed, I'd never been through anything like that before. What really got me was when I saw the caskets in Italy, and I just never thought that it would come to body bags being stacked up at
Mm-hmm.
hospitals in New York and other places. That was not the country that I grew up in. I never thought I would see anything like that in this country.
You're right.
But I was grateful for people like you and the nurses and the police officers and the other first responders and service providers, because without you all, we couldn't have done it. We couldn't have done it.
Absolutely. And I think that's what
And I
the
lost loved
workers,
ones. I lost one person that I grew up with. It just didn't have to be that way.
you're right. It shouldn't have been that way,
No, it shouldn't have been that way.
Right?
So, but they'll tell me, when I looked at your LinkedIn page, you said your goal is to change the mindset of management and employees and to bring respect back into the workplace as well as dignity. Do you feel that you've made strides in regard to your goals and achieving your goals?
I think we're making progress toward that. But again, employers, they have a hard time with this whole dignity and respect is, from my perspective in the companies that I deal with, it seems like the control part is all that matters to them. You work for me, you do what I say. I don't care about your family. I don't care about you having dignity or respect on the job. And then when you have a union contract, they feel as though that contract doesn't mean anything. Well, we negotiated it. You agreed. I agreed. So I think we're making progress toward it, but we still have a long, long way to go. We still have a long, long way to go because employers, they feel as though that workers don't contribute to their success, but the profits show otherwise. Until we can really get to that point where they respect what we bring to the table, I don't think we'll ever have that mindset that's going to change to where we'll have that dignity and respect.
Let me say this to you. When I heard about the Great Resignation, where people were leaving their jobs because they weren't satisfied, they didn't like where they were working, they didn't feel appreciated, they felt that they could do better going somewhere else. And I thought to myself, I said, I was listening to the media coverage, and the media coverage was people are leaving their jobs, the employees are in charge, they've got this power. And I'm thinking to myself, no, they don't. They don't. No. Because unless you're doing something that's highly skilled or in dire need of, they can replace you. Now, unions have protections in their contracts.
Right.
But everybody doesn't have a contract through a union or a personal employment contract. So these people that were not coming back to work, I was like, so I get a call from a friend, and the friend says she has a friend whose husband had been working remotely. And he got a call from his HR person, and the HR person says, we're going back into the office. And the husband says, well, I'd like to continue to work from home. The HR person says, I'll get back to you. She gets back to him in a few days and she says this, we'll accept your resignation.
Wow.
And I've heard that story more than one time. So
wow.
Your people have the protection of a union contract. People that don't have contractual protection need to be very careful with how they approach their continued employment. If you don't want to go back into the office or wherever you work, if you would want to have another job in your hip pocket before you say, I don't want to do that. Now, if you're doing something that's invaluable to the employer, and you better be right, because they will tell you goodbye in a minute.
Absolutely. Yes, they will.
I'm just saying. So, yeah, your people are in a different position than maybe some of the people listening.
Right.
Because I know people have lost their jobs in that Great Resignation trying to get back. And when they've left, they've tried to get back. You need to understand the employer doesn't want to keep everybody that's trying to leave. Some of them, they're glad they're going.
You're right. And I would just encourage our listeners that if you want some protections, join a union. Join a union. That'll be my advice. If you want better
I was going to ask you
conditions,
for your advice at the end of our discussion,
Yeah.
but that's number one.
Yeah.
We'll put a pin in that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We'll put a pin in that. So now I understand the need to have the right to strike. I respect that. I know that's in the National Labor Relations Act. But I've got to believe, and I know from the contracts I've negotiated, there is a quicker way to reach to end of job and to have a collective bargaining, a successor agreement. Some of this is dancing around and posturing for whatever reason. I don't presume to know, but I'm going to assume that there are reasons for the posturing and the extending the length of time that it takes to negotiate contracts. But when I looked at the Screen Actors Guild's situation, and I read somewhere in an article that there was over $3 billion lost during the time of that strike. The employees are not going to recoup that money, and neither is the business. But the business has got a better chance of recouping it than the employees. And the other thing was some of the demands that management rejected were agreed to resolve the dispute, get the contract signed. So I'm like, okay, so that could have been done a long time ago and they wouldn't have lost all this money. There must be a way that we can get to end the job and leave the strike as a nuclear option when there has to be a procedure in place. If you say, if a union or an employer makes a proposal and the other side rejects it, says, oh no, we can't do that, and you end up doing it, you end up accepting it, there has to be consequences because you're taking up time that shouldn't be taken up. People are losing money that they shouldn't be losing on both sides.
Right.
On both sides. What do you think about that?
Well, I think when you have that situation in negotiations, everybody is looking for control. Pride gets in the way, ego gets in the way. We went through with UPS this summer. All we wanted was a fair contract. And it took forever for it to get there. And a lot of it is because, again, control. It's control. Hey, this is my company. I do what I want to do. Who are you? You're just workers. You don't tell me what to do. Who do you think you are? Because the last strike happened at UPS in 1997. And I was still in high school then, but talking to people that were around, they were like, it shouldn't have went there, but the company, they wanted to flex their muscle. But the union said, well, what happens if we just walk? In 14 days, they was on the side of the road. Nothing was moving and everybody was struggling and this, that, and the other. I don't know why it takes that long. I don't know why, on both sides, like you said, I don't know why it just can't come to an agreement quickly. And sometimes we're fighting over nickels and dimes. We're not fighting over millions of dollars,
Well, but you're also fighting over money that you'll never get back. You're talking about a salary or cost of an hourly increase. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about you're out for months and you're losing money. You're losing your compensation for those months. You're not going to recoup that money. You're just not.
Right. You're right. But I think sometimes when the union does that, it's also to send a message to the employer that we're willing to lose this money. We're willing to take that loss.
The employer's not going to recoup the money either, unless he raises the prices, and then he or she may lose some customers.
You're right. You're right.
So I'm trying to create win-wins.
You sound like the CEO of UPS now. She said she wanted to win.
I'm trying to create win-wins. No, I'm a neutral. I'm trying to create win-wins.
I know.
I don't want anybody losing any money that they can't get back. It seems like an exercise in futility. What's the upside? So somebody's ego gets stroked?
There you go.
That ain't enough. I'm sorry.
You're right.
Go on a vacation with the money you save. Whatever. It seems not to be cost effective. So now tell me, why do you think there's more union activity than there's been in other years?
COVID. Again, COVID was the catalyst that sparked all of it.
Really?
That's the way I see it. Because if you look at prior to 2020, it was very, very stagnant. You didn't really see all this union activity. Once COVID happened and workers started to realize they have true power, now you're seeing everybody wanting to organize, and Starbucks and all these groups,
Did you see, it might have been Wisconsin, but it could have been Michigan. They repealed their right to work law. Did you see that?
Right. Saw that. Michigan, right. Workers,
North
They have,
Carolina's next.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope
I
so.
wouldn't
But
bet
yeah,
on it.
yeah, I know. But workers, man, they recognize what they were able to do during that period of time. Just think about it. They have this whole commercial, this slogan from Dunkin' Donuts. I believe it says America runs on Dunkin', right? It doesn't. It runs on labor. It runs on the worker. And it was proven during that time. And now
No, you're
workers
right.
know that. They know that now.
And the Teamsters are the truckers, and they were filling the grocery stores, the drug stores. They were making deliveries. Those trucks were on the interstates back and forth. Those truckers were making big money.
Absolutely.
Big money.
Absolutely. And that just gave you a sense of pride.
There's a way for everyone to do well. I believe that. I
I agree
genuinely
too.
believe that. But I want to begin a discussion about how we can get to successor agreements sooner rather than later and without as much discord. You know what I mean? There's no need for nastiness. You know what I'm saying? There's no
Right.
need for digging your heels in the sand and saying, no, we're not. Because if you say no and then you subsequently say yes, there should be consequences for that because you haven't been dealing in good faith.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you with that. Unfortunately,
And I've seen, like I said, I grew up in a union household, but I'm a management attorney by training. I've seen both sides. I'm sorry. There's time for this to stop.
you're
At
right.
least to begin a discussion about how we can move toward an approach that's more conducive to not costing people money that they can't get back.
Right.
Because I think that's important. That's important. You know, nobody can afford to give away any money.
You're right. And especially during these times.
Everything costs more.
Everything costs more. But unfortunately, you have employers who have their mindset on what they want to do. And then the unions, they have an obligation to protect their members from the domination of the employer. And if the employer doesn't want to give up some of that control or some of that power and just continue just to.
But if they end up giving it up anyway to achieve a successor agreement, why not? Listen, I'm going to interview management people too. If they will talk to me.
Yeah.
If they will.
I would like for you to have, a podcast or discussion when you have a management person and a union official at the same time. And
I'll try to do that.
that would be good because I actually had one of those at Drexel, I believe it was a couple of years ago, where they had myself and it had two management people. And you can tell that there was tension just in the conversation, right? They see things one way and we're just coming out of COVID. So now my perspective is even bigger than what it was before because now I know, because being in it, what workers and unions have done to keep the country, to keep that corporation profitable. So you're not going to be able to tell me that you can make it without me. That's no longer going to work because I've seen it.
Well, you have to be careful though, because people can be replaced, like I said. People can
Certain
be
people can.
replaced. You
Yeah,
have to be
certain.
careful.
Right.
You can't overthink the four corners of the contract because there are ways. I've been a management attorney. I know what some of the approaches have been, and I've represented labor too in another phase of my life. But I see all sides and I know there's a way. I know there's a way.
There is. There is. We just have to come
If you
to
get
it.
the people together, I'll moderate. How about that?
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good.
Is there anything, Richard, that you want to leave our listeners with? And please promise to come back because I have a feeling I'm
Absolutely.
going to need to talk to you again.
I'll come back whenever you need me to. I have no problem with that. I would just tell our listeners again, like I said, if you need worker protections, because a manager's word is not that good without a contract. So I would make sure you organize your workplace, your work area, whatever the case may be. And so you can have more power at work. Because there's Fred Hampton says this quote that I love. He said, anywhere there's people, there's power. And so we need to make sure that we organize in our workplaces so we can have that power.
Richard, it has been a pleasure talking to you. It's been informative. It's been pleasant. No acrimony. See, that's what I'm trying to achieve. I know
I'm
it
with
can
you.
be done.
Absolutely.
Until the next time, and hopefully there will be a next time we talk. I look forward to that. And thank you again. Until next time, please remember the name of my book is Your GPS to Employment Success: How to Find and Succeed in the Right Job. There's a brief discussion about labor unions in my book, but there's a wealth of information available to you wherever you are on your employment journey. Until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to Your Employment Matters with Beverly Williams. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. I truly appreciate your support, and that helps other listeners find the podcast. If you have a comment, question, or suggestion, you can reach me at baWilliams@youremploymentmatters.com. My book, Get the Job Done, is available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. Please join me again next week. Until then, remember to embrace change and differences.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.